Hello, and welcome to our fourth episode of Historical Baking with Miss Levine. It is our fourth week of our school closure, which means that it's our fourth week of historical baking, and I know that this is the only thing you've been looking forward to get you through these hard, uncertain times. So I'm here, never fear. Today we are going to make Thomas Jefferson's coconut macaroons. I know you are all so excited, and this is a super easy recipe, very easy to make, so I'm excited too. Now, last week we made bird's nest pudding from Lydia Mariah Childs, the frugal American housewife, which was actually really, really good. I was kind of surprised by it, but that was delicious. It was great to try it. And this week we're kind of going backwards in our history to Thomas Jefferson. And the main reason for that is because this recipe has no flour in it, which is perfect for me because Wednesday night is the first night of Passover, which is the Jewish holiday celebrated in the spring, where we recognize and celebrate when the Jewish people left slavery in Egypt and were freed, and they make this journey, the Exodus out of Egypt, but the story goes that they didn't have time to let their bread rise. So they baked this very flat bread that we call matzah. Some of you might have had this before. Here are my matzah crackers. I am all stocked up for these 8 days. So Passover, which lasts for 8 days, we celebrate it and recognize it by not eating anything with leavened flour or anything with oats or rye or barley. And some people who are very observant also don't eat anything with like corn, which also means corn syrup and cornstarch, or rice or beans. So this is one of the ways that we observe this holiday. We have a big dinner, which of course this year my family will be doing a virtual dinner. We call it a Seder, which means order, and we tell the story of Passover. So I saw in my cookbook, my Presidential Cookies cookbook, that they had a recipe for macaroons, which are a traditional Passover dessert because they're made with coconut and no flour in them. So I figured that's why I would make them this week. Now, if we read, and we've talked about Jefferson a lot and his complications in history, looking at all sides of him, and not just looking at him as this hero, but really analyzing him, the different parts of him. But this tells us another side of him as a frequent host of extravagant parties. So it says Jefferson's presidential dinners gained notoriety for their opulence and abundance. These sumptuous meals were often capped off by many desserts. Jefferson served meringues, macaroons, quaking jellies, and flummery, a popular custard of his era. He also introduced his guests to tantalizing desserts he had sampled in Europe, such as creme brulee. You know, Jefferson always so fancy with those French desserts. So today we're going to make our coconut macaroons. As I said, super easy. I'm going to make the full recipe for these since I'll eat them all during Passover, and I can always freeze some. So you need 4 cups of sweetened flaked coconut, which is a 14-ounce package. Got mine right here. 1 cup of sweetened condensed milk. Look at me, ready to go. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. Half a teaspoon of almond extract. Now, I don't have some, and I didn't get any. I don't think this really matters, but my brother has a nut allergy, an almond allergy, so in his honor, I wasn't going to cook with it, in case, not that we'll be able to see each other, but thinking about him, even though he said it doesn't really do anything if it's just an extract, not really the nuts, but just to be safe, I'm going to use coconut extract instead of almond extract because I have it. And I didn't feel like buying another extract. All right, and then a 1/4 teaspoon salt, right? Super easy. So I have my oven, which is preheating to 350. It'll be there soon. I got 2 cookie sheets that are lined with parchment paper, ready to go. So let's get baking. And I was trying to think about, what did I want to talk to all of you about this week while making these macaroons. They're super easy. And again, making these for Passover. So think a little bit about Passover. And I'm just going to add really everything into the bowl. That's what it says to do. So thinking about Passover and thinking about some connections that can be made between Passover and some of the things we've been talking about in U.S. history class. And one of the things I thought about was how in Passover we really celebrate the Jewish people's exodus, their freedom from slavery. So now we add our condensed milk, sweetened condensed milk in here. And thinking about that and kind of putting the juxtaposition to what we have been doing in U.S. history this week, which was talking about the Trail of Tears with Native Americans especially the Cherokee in Georgia and other groups there as well, like the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Creeks, and the Seminole, and this forced removal from their homeland. And thinking about that, in comparison to Passover, where we think about the Jewish people who were in Egypt, and the story goes, enslaved in Egypt, and then they're freed and they wander back towards their homeland, this wandering the desert for 40 years before they make it to the Jewish homeland of what was Canaan and now Israel. And kind of thinking about that groups in history that are often going on these wanderings, that are these minority groups that have less power, that are either wandering the desert or forced to leave their homes and go to what is now Oklahoma, and kind of thinking about the similarities between that, which also makes me think about some of the mistreatment of groups to this day as well, and thinking about this time where during Passover, where we often celebrate the freedom of the Jewish people from this incident, we think about those who are not yet free, and think about the 10 plagues in Passover, which eventually allowed the Jewish people to be freed from Egypt, but thinking, especially during a plague right now, thinking about these modern day plagues and modern day inequalities. So I'll talk more about that once I measure out our vanilla extract, right? Having a serious conversation. Look, there's our oven, is ready to go. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Actually, that is my coconut. So I'll do half a teaspoon of coconut. I grabbed the wrong extract. So half a teaspoon of coconut. I think I caught it. And now here's my vanilla. I'll do a full teaspoon of vanilla. Ooh, that smells so good. So coconutty, extra coconutty. And then a quarter teaspoon of salt. And that's really it. As I said, these are super easy. Just your coconut, condensed milk, salt, vanilla, and your almond or coconut extract. Or if you don't have any of those other extracts, you could just do extra vanilla extract and just add 1.5 teaspoons instead of something else. Now, once I get this all mixed together, what I'm also going to add, because the sweeter the better, right, is half a cup of mini chocolate chips. Yum! All right, I think my wooden spoon is going to do the trick better than my spatula. So as I'm mixing these, thinking a little bit more about what I was saying before, and the idea of things going on now. And U.S. history students, you are reading a lot this week about modern day xenophobia and racism and reactions based on the coronavirus, and how because the coronavirus came from China, there's been a reaction to people from Asian descent across the country and even across the world, and this targeting of them. And thinking about that, where regardless of somebody's race, there's no time to scapegoat. And how, thinking back to what we celebrated on Passover, that reminds me, during the bubonic plague in Europe, many people blamed Jewish people for being the cause of the plague. When they didn't have signs and they didn't understand what was happening, they said that Jewish people were poisoning the wells. And there was a lot of discrimination and violence and persecution of Jewish people in the Middle Ages, saying that they were the ones who caused the plague because they were poisoning the wells. And even rumors that they baked matzah with the blood of Christian children, which all went to stereotypes and mistreatment of Jewish people during the Middle Ages. So it's important, again, I always say it's important to study history. It's important to look at this history and think about this history and understand that throughout time, history hasn't always been great to people. We can see that through everything we've learned, but how it's time for us to be upstanders and not to let that continue, and to learn from this history and to do better by it and stand up to persecution or racism or xenophobia caused by the coronavirus. And that it's not the China virus. It is called the coronavirus, which the CDC named because of the corona shapes that you see under the microscope. And the real name for the disease is COVID, which comes from coronavirus disease 19. And actually naming something matters. And how in 2015, the CDC changed the way they named things to prevent them from being place-based because of these influences that it has. So thinking about that, I know that's a lot of history and a lot of lessons coming from some cookies, but history matters. And we always ask on the first day of school or the first weeks, why do we study history? And we always say, oh, so it doesn't repeat itself. But it's not just a thing that we say. It's not just a line from a textbook. it's reality. It really does make a difference. And to make sure we don't repeat these persecutions and mistreatment of people throughout time, it's important for us to learn this and study this, even if it is while baking some delicious coconut chocolate chip macaroons. All right, this is my cookie scoop. So wonderful trick to use. So I'm just going to measure these out, scoop them and onto my cookie sheet. And then afterwards, what I will do is kind of like reshape them. So I'll show you that as well. So I'm just going to scoop these all out, reshape them, bake them, and I'm done with my lecture for today, everyone. I hope you learned from this, whether it was a lesson from history or a lesson about current events or just a lesson about making coconut macaroons. Normally, I would do lots of baking to share baked goods with my family for Passover. Tomorrow night, my family will be doing a virtual Seder, so we will be sharing stories and not sharing food. But I have so many of these. I can freeze them. I can save them for later. So after you put them on your cookie sheet, you just want to shape them into rounds with your fingers. So I washed my hands before. I'm going to do it again, so I'll be right back. You know, the importance of washing our hands, as we all know. All right. Now I'm just going to take, here's like my mixture. So this is what it looks like. Yum. So you have your coconut, you have your condensed milk, and just kind of shape them into these little balls more. The cookie scoop mostly gets it, but just to make them a little more perfect, these are going to be so good. And again, they are super easy to make. All right, so you're going to bake them in the oven for 9 to 12 minutes or until tops and bottoms are lightly brown, and then cool into parchment paper. You should make about 3 dozen of these. I have 1 dozen here. I'm going to keep baking, but I won't make you wait while I bake. So I'm going to stop, but as always, I will post pictures of them on Schoology. I'll post, the recipe's actually already on Schoology, US history classes. I'll post it on my other classes too, and I'll see you next week when I'll break Passover at the end of the week. So Passover goes until the evening of the 16th. So especially by Friday, I'll be celebrating, and I'll be making the most like flour, chocolatey, decadent dessert to celebrate the end of Passover when I bring on all of the carbs. All right, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay kind to each other, and go bake. Bye.